We're back with our impossible challenge of getting Zot, a bronze ADC, all the way to diamond in just 90 days. To recap, the first step Zot took on his journey, and to get him climbing quickly, was step 1 of our program, which is based on teaching players how to aggressively farm everything on the map mindlessly. The key was to just not think about anything and to just mindlessly do it.
Everyone's mid, but I see big wave, I walk to big wave, so I'm going top.
And it's working, maybe a little too well, as he really doesn't care in the slightest about anything.
So they're all doing dragon. I'm just going to completely ignore that and go mid.
Which is why his farming has been so effective. To be clear, here's a typical silver ADC's average CS scores. They're inconsistent, which likely means they're usually weaker at these points in the game than they should be, resulting in them not doing enough damage to carry. But compared to Zot's, his CS has improved so drastically that he hasn't even needed to play particularly well yet. He's just mindlessly securing so much farm that he's significantly stronger than everyone else in his games. Because of this, he can effortlessly auto-attack anyone without needing much or even anything in the way of mechanics or game sense. Lastly, we want to make it super clear we're not giving Zot any advice or private coaching sessions outside of what's featured on our brand new Bronze to Diamond page at skillcap.com. Every interaction, every lesson, every "oh, that's how you do it" moment, all right there for you to follow along with step by step. So be sure to check out the link in the description below. But anyway, his OP.GG doesn't paint the whole picture, as Zot has been having major issues with other skills that were starting to hold him back. To make things clear for everyone, here's how Challenger coach Hector has ranked all of Zot's skills out of 10 after the first week on the official Zot trading card. We'll update this each week so you can easily track Zot's progress in all of the fundamental skills required to be a diamond ADC.
Honestly, I didn't expect Zot to be so good at farming immediately. Typically, the biggest issue players have in applying step 1 is caring way too much whether they might die to an assassin or their team throws while they're farming. But Zot naturally just has a good mentality. He just doesn't care and mindlessly does it, which is why he's so good at it. But he is very depressing to watch at everything else he does, and he's had huge issues with his laning phase, including his luck with supports.
Is he just AFK?
As he began to get more and more frustrated,
He's taking a break, he's just having a nap in the bush.
it was becoming apparent just why we picked this role for Zot.
Oh my god, there's no way.
But for being only a week into this 90-day challenge, it sounds like Zot might already be losing his mind.
And he pings me, and he pings me.
However, funny as it is to join Tom in watching as Zot suffers,
Please, man, look at our wave. Fight, please. What are you doing?
we need to remember there's a lot on the line here, as if Hector doesn't get Zot to diamond in just 90 days, he's gonna have to swim with sharks. Yeah, we weren't kidding about that. The biggest issue right now is that if Zot can survive into the mid game and put what he's learned from step 1 into action, he's usually golden. But now that he's climbed higher, actually getting to that point has become much more challenging, as his shaky laning fundamentals and questionable mechanics are causing him to, in most games, come out of lane phase significantly behind, which makes implementing his farming strategy more and more difficult. Which brings us to the second step in our program and main focus for this week's episode: improving Zot's laning. Because you can't even attempt to farm in the mid game if you throw the lane so hard you just lose the game instantly. One of the biggest issues when it comes to laning in low elo is, as Hector pointed out in this week's first lesson.
So the best way to approach lane is just to have multiple win conditions going on at the same time.
While that sounds like some fortune cookie wisdom, there's actually a game-changing takeaway here. See, most players are basically goldfish with keyboards. They've got one win condition floating around in their brain at any given time. For example, if you and your opponent are both on low health, all you end up thinking about is how you're gonna score, kill, and nothing else, while completely ignoring the other ways you could transition this into a lead in lane. When instead, the best way to dominate lane is, as Hector put it,
So the best way to approach lane is just to have multiple win conditions going on at the same time.
good laning isn't about tunnel visioning on a single advantage. It's about constantly juggling multiple potential opportunities in the back of your mind. If you have 3 to 4 win conditions in your head at all times, compared to the average league player who only has 1 or 2, then you are going to be way more likely to find opportunities to come out positive in most lane phases. This is exactly why Hector's lessons for the week focused on 4 critical concepts: rune trades, level spikes, item economy, and wave management. Which brings us to Hector's first of 4 lessons: rune trades. opponents. Now obviously, in lane, your main goal is to kill your opponent. But one issue Zot had been struggling with, and something I'm sure many players can relate to, is finding it really hard to understand how each bot lane matchup is supposed to play out, which honestly makes perfect sense. There's a ridiculous amount of marksmen and even more support champions, all with wildly different playstyles and goals in lane. And when you pair them together, the possible combinations explode into a dizzying mess of variables that would make even a jungle main's head explode. For example, as Misfortune with a level lead and a serrated Dirk to Jinx's dagger, you would think Misfortune would wipe the floor with her in an all-in, right? Well, not exactly. See, even with a massive lead, Zot should have known he'd lose this fight. This is why Hector's rune trading lesson was aimed towards giving Zot and any ADCs looking to improve their laning a way to identify a reliable game plan for scoring kills and out-trading their opponents in almost every single lane, no matter what random matchup you find yourself in. And how you do this is by simply identifying which side wants to long trade and which side wants to short trade. This is something Zot was extremely bad at recognizing at first, as Hector pointed out in one of their lane-focused VOD reviews this week.
What loyal players struggle with the most is not having a game plan, so when something unexpected happens like this, they tend to panic, especially bot laners because there's 4 champions and there's a lot going on. If Zot just knew he had lethal tempo and Ashe had Comet, the second these two step out of the brush, they're dead. They're so dead because they have no consistent damage and they're fighting in your wave. So all you have to do is stand very aggressively and auto attack them to death. But you can see because Zot had no game plan and he was trying to adapt to this random situation, he's walking backwards, playing it a bit safe because he doesn't already know what the outcome should be.
So Hector set a rule for Zot going forward. At the start of every game, he has to immediately ask himself whether he's favored in long trades or short trades.
Okay, Zyrogen. Big poke lane. We need to all in. Preserve health, all in.
And with just that straightforward game plan in mind, watch what happens. Zot's Pantheon makes a questionable engage starting a fight. At first, this looks kinda awkward. They're fighting in minions and Pantheon is nearly dead already. But Zot knows that he is guaranteed to win a long engage, so he fully commits without any hesitation, which is how he easily comes out ahead in this all-in. Something we really want to stress throughout this journey is not to only focus on Zot, but also to pay attention to what his opponents are doing. At Skill Capped, we're not teaching you how to lane versus Ruler, Guma Yusi, Jackie Love, or any other insane ADC out there. You're laning against average players who are just as average as you are. So you really don't need any advanced or crazy tips for climbing. You just need good fundamentals. And if Jin had just watched our lessons, he would know he wants short trades, and he should have cut the fight right here. If he did, he'd be winning because Pantheon's engage was awful. But because he doesn't have a game plan, while Zot actually does, this lane is instead immediately over. From here on out, it's way too hard for Jin to play, letting Zot crush this lane all from one super simple lesson. But of course, like we mentioned, trading around runes is just one of 4 lessons and 4 separate win conditions. Up next, we have everybody's favorite tip, one that you hear all the time: fighting around level spikes. You've definitely heard this before, that fighting while you're a level up on your opponent is obviously a good idea. It's especially relevant earlier into the game when levels matter more than they do later. And it can be a huge win condition in every game, and even more so in bot lane, where hitting level 2 first will give you 4 abilities over your opponent's 2. However, we know it can feel like this usually isn't very helpful, as everybody knows about it, meaning when you level up, your opponent just starts playing safe and you can't punish them anyway. But there's 2 ways to fix this, which Hector focused on in his lesson, making your level up timers lead to way more consistent results. First one being learning exactly when you'll level up. In bot lane, you get level 2 on the second wave after killing all 3 melees, and you will hit level 3, which is another very important spike, on the 4th wave after killing 3 melees there as well. With just this information, Zot had already been way faster at capitalizing on his level ups and catching enemy bot laners off guard, leading him to already seeing immediate improvements in lane. But to take this to the next level, the second focus of Hector's lesson was the concept of fighting before you're about to level up, as he explained to Zot in the lesson here.
Right now, let's say I'm getting it on this melee. I want to start fighting now, because as I'm fighting, this melee is dying. So you can see these melees are dying. I get level 2 and it catches people off guard.
But there was one major problem. After giving this advice, Hector already knew what was going to happen.
I already know what's going to happen. Whenever people learn something new in an educational guide or stream, they immediately go into games and try to brute force it no matter what. So I'm pretty excited to see how Zot completely messes this up.
And Hector was spot on, as that's exactly what Zot went on to do right after that lesson. Desperately wanting to do a level up all in properly, Zot walks up up right as the minion is about to die. The only issue, he's forgetting like 10 other fundamentals in order to do so. Just look at where his rel is. Not to mention, he's a misfortune with first strike, meaning his all-ins suck. So, despite executing Hector's lesson perfectly, he just gets out-traded. And even worse, the trade extended for so long that eventually the Swain and Nami also hit level 2, and Zot just ends up dying for first blood.
That was terrible. I'm overthinking this level 2 too much.
But that moment of self-awareness from Zot actually became a crucial teaching point for this week's episode. Remember, you want to keep multiple win conditions in mind throughout your laning phase. When you fixate too heavily on just one, like that level 2 play, you often end up sabotaging your own game, exactly as we witnessed with Zot. The difference maker is developing the flexibility to recognize when to abandon one approach and pivot to another. And this tunnel vision was a major recurring issue, especially after our next lesson, wave control. But before we dive into any actual learning, here's a hilarious interaction between Hector and Zot after their wave control lesson, where Zot had just learned the value of freezing.
Cool, I froze there, and then I ran them down when they came. I'm actually playing this lane fine, for once.
And just like any student desperate for their coach's approval, Zot shared this game with Hector, expecting high praise for his great play.
Okay, so here I know I'm stronger, so I just want to like force an all in as the wave's there. I like flash over the trap, but then I kind of didn't expect her to run up. I don't know why, and she gets away. What I do next though is like she's trying to get back to lane, and I'm just like zoning her because the wave's right there.
This is perfect. You're even watching the wave to make sure it doesn't crash. Honestly, not bad.
Yeah.
This was pretty clean.
I figured this would be like the perfect situation to freeze because I thought about pushing it, but I don't think there's any way I would push this in time. So to deny her the like most amount of minions, I figured freezing here would make the most sense. I don't know if that's right, but that's what I went for anyway.
It is. Like, you just based its early levels, yeah.
Yeah, and then this guy comes up to try to break it. I'm like level 5, she's level 3, so I'm just stopping her. I'm just pressuring her because I know Jinx is not there, so I'm being super aggressive. Look at this E. I like purposely didn't hit the minions with this E to keep the freeze. She gets away, but I figured that's fine. Like, I just go back to my freeze, so I think it's pretty good.
Zot, do you see it?
What?
Stop looking at your freeze for 1 second. Do you see it?
See what? Did I like break it or what? What do you mean?
How have you still not?
Oh yeah, look. And then I killed them both, by the way, off the back of that freeze. I'm 2 levels up on her, and we just run them both down. I probably could have positioned better, but...
Like, I want to be proud of you, but you're making it really hard to be proud of you.
Why? Should I have not frozen there when she come back?
I just want to see how long it takes.
Was the jungler there?
I want to see how long it takes in-game Zot and out-of-game Zot to realize this.
What? I'm like seriously lost.
No, I know you're lost.
Did I genuinely don't know.
I don't get how you...
Are you gonna tell me or what? I honestly thought this was good. I thought it was like perfect time to freeze.
When? Like, when do you realize?
Realize what?
Thank you.
Evidently, Hector's wave control lessons were so mind-blowing that Zot couldn't process anything else besides the words he spoke. So let's see exactly what caused this ability leveling amnesia.
In League, I firmly believe it is better to not talk about what you should be doing with your wave. It's usually better to talk about what you shouldn't be doing with your wave. Based on that, we need to think about what are the weaknesses of each wave strategy rather than thinking about what they're good at.
This is an important lesson to learn. Like we mentioned, you're not versing challenger or pro players. You don't need 200 IQ wave strategies to climb. Instead, it's better to focus on not doing the wrong thing at the wrong time and playing for small but consistent leads with your wave tactics. And so, the main weaknesses of each wave strategy are as follows. Fast pushing is uninteractive, which can be bad if you're stronger than your opponent, or you need to shut them down early, as this just means they'll be able to freely farm under turret. Slow pushing's weakness is that you have no control over the wave. It will push into your opponent no matter what. For example, if a dragon fight starts and you're slow pushing, you can't leave your wave, otherwise you'll lose a ton of farm. And freezing's weakness is that you're locked into your lane for a long time. As potent as freezing can be, it puts you at a massive disadvantage and frees up your opponents to do whatever they want at the cost of a few minions. But what we've covered here is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to wave management. Want the full experience? Click the link in the description to unlock all 4 of this this week's lessons in full. Plus, over 5 hours of exclusive content, including detailed VOD reviews and real-time challenger earpiece coaching sessions. Everything Zot learns, you can master too. All available now on our brand new Bronze to Diamond page. Plus, for limited time, gain access to a special discount using the link in the description below. Another important factor when it comes to wave management is hitting your wave with a purpose. We found over the years that players tend to just autopilot hit minions because it feels good. Just think about when you've crashed a wave into the turret and the next wave arrives, you feel almost compelled to hit it, right? Which makes sense, you're playing a video game and it's obviously boring to always be as disciplined. But it's a huge issue to mindlessly hit minions just because you feel like you should be doing something or you want the little dopamine hit of moving your character. This is an urge you need to learn to control, something Zot has personally gotten better at, which coupled with his newly found wave control knowledge means we're already seeing him beginning to incorporate concepts like slow pushing into his games. Or at least try to.
I slow push this. No, I'm not. Oh, I hate all support players actually.
But after all, this is exactly why we picked ADC as our first Bronze to Diamond. Because even when you learn what you should be doing, your supports don't care, and they will just troll your wave to proc their support item for no reason. Fun! But a bad support is never the reason why you can't win games. With a simple lesson on wave control, here's what Zot is already capable of. After dying to a gank, Zot comes back to this wave. With discipline in mind, he keeps calm and barely hits the wave, building a healthy, slow push over time. Zot knows that with a slow push, you can misplay as many times as you want, and you can't be punished. So he clearly tanks this hook on purpose. But it doesn't matter. He can now crash a big wave into Smolder's tower and get a free recall off. Now he's got an item advantage and comes back to set up a freeze, which from Hector's lesson, he knows they're best at levels 1 to 5, and right after basing, when you've spent all your gold. The Smolder who mismanaged their wave is now in a horrible spot, eventually letting Nautilus land a hook into a super easy kill, all off some simple wave tactics. And that is precisely the biggest strength of understanding wave management in the first place, because it leads into perhaps one of the most important lane concepts of all Zot is using to crush his lanes now: item economy. We're sure none of you need to be told that having more gold and items than someone is a huge advantage in this game. However, there are so many different concepts you can use to gain an advantage through items that are giving Zot an edge in lane over everyone right now.
We mentioned this in the VOD review. You always want to be looking at your current items rather than total gold, because total gold, you have the same amount of gold, but you've spent more gold, so technically you should be stronger, but right now you're not really stronger, so it doesn't matter.
I think that's a good piece of advice, because I kind of look at the CS to gauge how well the lane, like I see, oh, I'm higher on CS, I'm stronger than her right now. In reality, we're exactly the same.
Yeah, people have a really bad habit. When they press tab, they look at this or they look at this.
As Hector just pointed out, most players have this terrible habit of gathering the wrong intel when they press tab. You never want to look at someone's kills or CS when pressing tab. Only focus on the items they actually have. This is because sometimes players aren't making efficient use of their gold, or they've stayed on the map for a long time and are sitting on a ton of gold. So metrics like CS and kills are not a reliable method to check for someone's current strength. As per this example, you always want to compare your opponent's inventory to your own. A simple trick to make things easier is to cross out anything you have that's the same. So here, you'd cross the Doran's Blade and Longsword, making it so you only have to compare these two components. Then a bit of mental math is all you need to figure out how much stronger one player is over the other. With a kill and 10 CS up, you'd think Kai'Sa should be much stronger, but in reality, she isn't, and the effective gold lead is almost irrelevant.
I consider these two kind of the same, so I'm just a longsword up.
No, you are not.
Oh, I'm with equal.
Yeah, you're basically equal.
Which brings us to a super helpful concept: component quality. It goes without saying that all components are not created equal. Looking at you, Crit Cloak, every ADC has experienced the horrendous Crit Cloak recall timer, which feels horrible to sit on. What components you base on can completely change the way that you play the lane, and Hector spent a long time getting Zot to both recognize this and learn to play around it. As you can see, there's quite a bit to take in from Hector's ramblings to Zot, so let's clean things up for some key takeaways. First, like we said, the quality of components can vary, and you can't judge how strong someone is just based on gold spent. For example, if you as a Jinx base on boots and Scout Slingshot versus an Ezreal who has a Sheen, you may have spent the same amount of gold, but you are clearly not favored in items, as Sheen is a much higher quality component compared to what you've got. Therefore, it is extremely important to go into every game with a game plan for how much gold you ideally want to base with for your specific champion. Luckily for Zot, one of his main champions right now is Misfortune and rushing Hubris every game, so mapping that out for him him was quite easy, as the entire build path is just longswords. Jinx and other crit-based ADCs, however, are a pain to base on, and don't feel good unless you base on 1300 gold for BF sword to go into Yuntal, or in Jinx's case, at least 1100 gold for tier 2 boots. These are super expensive quality components, which makes the early game feel awful if you base at an awkward time. Let's watch this concept put into action from an earpiece segment where Hector guided Zot through a bad early game, where he died early on to Draven. This might look hopeless right now, as Draven now has 2 kills early on, but let's watch. After reviving and getting back to lane, Zot pushes the wave and eventually crashes into the enemy tower.
Can you press shop? Yeah, base. Just get Zerker creeps. Remember, Zerkers are like really nice for you. I press tab as you walk back.
He has a lot stronger than me right now, BF sword.
He's actually not. Remember, Zerkers are kind of decent power early.
This is what we mean. Most players would panic that Draven has a couple of early kills and is snowballing, but Zot is fresh off his base having spent all his gold, whereas Draven isn't. Also, his component quality is fairly low compared to Zot's, so this isn't the worst lane state to be in, despite the double kill. So Zot and Nautilus have a chance to turn this around until, well, at least until Nautilus hooks a minion and Zot walks right into a bubble afterwards. No amount of item knowledge will ever save you from this level of trolling. Thankfully, the enemy duo botched the tower dive right afterwards.
Like, just flash the Nami ult.
Nice!
And balance in the world is restored. With these 4 laning concepts down, Zot has already reached gold elo and is on a massive win streak at the moment on Corki. But if we do a bit of investigating down below, we can see that this Corki pick was clearly inspired by a few bad games from Zot. He clearly changed his champion out of tilt, and Hector was not having it. Trust us ADC mains. We won't let Zot or Hector off easy in this challenge. He will be forced to play team-reliant ADCs, and not just solo carry ones like Corki or Samira the entire challenge. But while we've taught a lot of important lane fundamentals here, one problem Zot is still suffering from is dealing with bad supports, a topic we're going to be focusing on more in episode 3. If you're eager to follow Zot's journey more closely, you can see exactly what's helped him power through gold and gain exclusive early access to lesson 3 in our bronze to diamond course right now. And spoiler,
Ooh. Platinum.
We love that.
You make my eyes bleed when you play, and you're still plat. Not too bad.
Thanks, mate. Thanks.
so if you're serious about climbing and breaking out of Elo Hell, be sure to check it out today using the link in the description below.
I don't want to let this guy base now. All I should be thinking about. I let him base.